Hello there and welcome to Ray of Sunlight. I'm so excited to be making this video. Firstly, I'm going to share with you a really special announcement that I have for some stuff that's coming up on this channel, and then secondly, I'm going to share with you my December TBR, which is not linked to any readathon, but is rather just some books that I would really like to get around to reading in December. I will talk more about that in the second half of the video. Firstly, December is coming upon us fast, as I'm sure you're all aware, and a December YouTube tradition, which I think I only discovered this existed last year. I feel like I've been so late to the party. Anyway, a December themed thing that happens on YouTube is Vlogmas, which is where people take you on daily vlogs along with them throughout December, sharing some of the excitement and anticipation in the run up to Christmas. And I am planning to participate in that fully, we'll see how this goes, this December. So I'm going to film a vlog every day from the 1st to the 24th of December and share those videos with you, taking you along with me in my life on the run up till Christmas. My December is already looking really busy. Also in a bit of a scattered way, like it's not that fully planned yet. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to go, but we're going to give it a try. I hope to just be able to capture and share a little bit of the festive spirit and the fun of the lead up to Christmas, because this is absolutely one of my favourite times of the year. Additionally, I've put together something I'm super excited about to go along with Vlogmas, and it's a kind of journaling advent calendar. So I don't have an advent calendar this year. I'm in the Congo and I can't buy one. I'm a bit sad about it, not gonna lie. Might buy myself one when I go back to the UK. I will be going back to the UK early-ish in December, like before halfway through Advent, so it might still seem feasible to buy myself an Advent calendar. But in the absence of an Advent calendar for myself, I thought it would be really nice to have some form of special things to count off the days, because I feel like December, more than every other month in a year, is a month where every single day feels magical and special. So I've put together journaling prompts for the lead up till Christmas, with each day focused on a different value. And these are prompts which I hope will allow me, and also you if you would like to join in, just to reflect a bit on how we're living our lives in general from a values-based perspective. So many of these things are looking kind of outwardly at prompting us to think a little bit more about our role in the world. Are we being kind? Are we supporting others? And many of them are also looking inwardly. Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we holding ourselves to unnecessarily high standards? And my plan is that this will be a really nice way to transition into the new year, to think a little bit about what we are looking forward to in 2022, what we maybe want to bring to that year, and to enter it from a place of stillness and self-reflection. My journaling prompts are all completely non-religious, although I have used some of the kind of values that spring to my mind when I think about Christmas and think about Advent as inspiration. So on the morning of the actual day I will be doing the journaling prompt, i.e. like the 1st of December in the morning, I'll share the journaling prompts on Instagram and I'll save them in a highlight, so if you ever want to go back and look at the old ones then you can. I will then vlog myself that day also answering the journaling prompt, and that video will come up the next day. So if you want to do the prompts kind of like on the same day as me, then you can look at them on Instagram, and if you're not that bothered about that, then you can do them with me the next day on YouTube. I just thought it would be a nice way to bring a bit of focus to December, to bring a little bit of grounding and stillness and reflection to a month which can so easily become an absolute whirlwind of stuff, right? We all know the way that the holidays can become this mad busyness of doing things and buying things, and the spirit of Christmas never really feels like that. The spirit of Christmas is in the love and the gentleness and the kindness of the season and the excitement and the joy. And so that's kind of my plan for Vlogmas, is to share those little emotions and to share those small things in my day-to-day life which bring me joy, in the hope that some of that joy will come across in the videos. Moving on to books, Vlogmas also obviously will include me chatting about the things that I'm reading as I go through December. And although I don't always create TBRs, and usually I only create TBRs when there's some form of a reading challenge or readathon or whatever going on, I decided to make one for December just because there were a lot of books that I could feel kind of pulling at me, that I just kept popping up in my head like, oh, I really want to read this in December. And so I thought I would gather them together and I thought I would share them with you. They're actually all hardbacks, beautiful books, and many of them are children's fiction. And I think this is just what I was really craving for December. So I participated quite fully in non-fiction November, which I really enjoyed. Non-fiction is not my go-to genre, and so I kind of needed the push of non-fiction November to encourage me to get around to reading a load of non-fiction books that I owned or was wanting to read but would probably never mood read. And I've really enjoyed that. I found it very satisfying. But I find with non-fiction I sort of feel a little bit like, well done, I've read that thing that I'm supposed to read. Whereas with children's fiction, it's always a case of reading the thing that I just really, really want to read and I'm going to enjoy. And December for me is definitely a month of childlike magic and books and comforting, cozy tales. So I'm really looking forward to reading some of those books in December. And I'm really looking forward to enjoying the process of reading an actual book, having spent an awful lot of time in November reading things on my Kindle, which is nice, but again, doesn't feel as wonderful as holding a beautiful illustrated hardback book in your hands. There's something, again, very Christmassy and wintry and sort of hygge about that whole experience. Most of my books are quite Christmas connected. This first one is not, but it's on my list because I got it for Christmas last year and haven't yet read it, and I would quite like to try and get around to reading those books, which I received for Christmas last year, and for whatever reason haven't found the time to read this year. This first one is October, October. Oh, I adore this cover, which is by Katya Balen. I really wanted to read this in October, but I was away from my copy of it for the whole of October, so never got around to it. It's a middle grade. I think it will be quite a speedy read, and it's the story of an 11-year-old girl who lives in the woods with her dad, and this kind of pivotal year in her life in which many things happen. Her dad gets injured in some way, they adopt a baby owl, and her mother comes back into their lives. So I'm really looking forward to this as just a quick, cozy, maybe even like read it in a day type read. Next up we have Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I read this last year and it made me think I should reread A Christmas Carol every year because it brought me an inordinate amount of joy. I've also just come from finishing Our Mutual Friend and I'm just missing Dickens so much already. Like, I enjoyed Our Mutual Friend so much. This is a gorgeous copy which my aunt got for me, and it also includes some of his other Christmas books, and so alongside a potential reread of A Christmas Carol, I would really like to read at least one of Dickens' other Christmas stories because I haven't read any of them. So I think there's like The Chimes, The Cricket on the Hearth, and I think there's maybe even another one in here. Oh, another couple, The Battle of Life and The Haunted Man. So yeah, I'd like to do a reread of A Christmas Carol, which is just the quintessential Christmas tale, and to also read one of Dickens' other Christmas stories. Next up we have Howl's Moving Castle by Dianna Wynne Jones. This would also be a reread for me, although one of those rereads where I read the book so long ago that I think it will feel like a first time read. Howl's Moving Castle, the Studio Ghibli film, was one of my absolute favourite films growing up. And I read the book as a child as well, but have kind of totally forgotten it. And I got this beautiful, beautiful folio edition from my parents last Christmas. Oh. This is a middle grade / YA novel about a young girl who gets cursed by a wicked witch to become an old lady, and she finds refuge in this moving castle which is owned by the selfish wizard Howl, whose heart has been kind of stolen from him again, I think, from a curse. It's about the relationship between the two of them and the adventures that they go on in this moving castle. I love the energy of this book, and I'm really excited for a bit of childlike magic in my December. Next up, another reread of another book that I actually haven't read for a long time, and this is The Country Child by Alison Uttley. This is my beautiful edition of it, these like gold embossed, and there's loads of woodcutting pictures throughout this book. The Country Child was probably my favourite book growing up. It is beautiful, so beautifully written, and it's a kind of fictionalised memoir of a year in the life of a young girl growing up in the very tail end of the Victorian era on a really rural farm in Derbyshire. Each chapter just follows a kind of simple part of their country year, and there are two super Christmassy chapters in here which are just some of my favourite chapters in any of the books in the world. One of them is the chapter called December, and the other is the one which is about Christmas. And when I was a child, I was the kind of child who used to wake up at like 3 a.m. on Christmas morning because I was so excited. And one of the things that I used to do annually to pass the time for myself was to read the chapter called Christmas in this book while I was waiting for it to be the time at which we were allowed to wake my parents up, which was 6 a.m, which actually I think probably was quite generous of them as an early start time to give to their super excited daughter. Anyway, yeah, I really adore this book. So focused on the simple beauties of life. This always makes me so appreciative, and I'm so looking forward to spending time with these beautiful words again. We have yet another one of my beautiful books that I want to reread. Like I said, there's something about December that makes me crave beautiful books. I love a beautiful hardback book, particularly the Folio Society. The last few books that I've shown in Folio Society, this is no different, and this is actually my favourite of all the Folio Societies that I own in terms of the beauty of the copy. This is The Wind and the Willows, and what I love about it is that it's so heavily illustrated throughout. The Wind and the Willows is a children's story about a group of animals who live on the riverbank in the UK, and it kind of takes you through their years, through the adventures and the scrapes that they get into. There's some beautiful Christmas scenes in here. There's one that particularly stands out in my mind when the mice come round caroling at the door. They sing this beautiful carol, which when I was a child I used to sing in the choir at my church, and we sang this carol one Christmas. And I have searched YouTube in an attempt to re-find the version of it that we sang because I thought it was so beautiful and I loved it. I loved it so much, but I've never been able to find the musical version that I sang. However, I think this book has some gorgeous, cozy, warm Christmas scenes in it, and so I'm looking forward to reading those, as well as to rereading the book as a whole. I think the last time I reread it was maybe in my very early 20s, and so I think there will be things that will surprise and delight me in here. I believe The Wind and the Willows is one of those books that like you experience as a child and think it's a children's book, and then you reread it as an adult and you're like, wow, this has so much to bring to my lived experience right now that I would never have recognised as a child. That's how I remember feeling when I read it in my early 20s, so hopefully I'll have a similar experience this time around. Penultimately, we have Under the Stars by Matt Gore. This is one that I really wanted to read for Non-Fiction November. It didn't fit any of the prompts, and I had so many other things I wanted to read for Non-Fiction November that I didn't get around to it, but this is probably, of all my non-fiction books, the one I most want to read, and it's a kind of exploration of the night sky and one man's quest to really find and connect himself with the night sky by finding areas of darkness. I gain an awful lot from looking at the night sky, like looking at the moon, looking at the stars. There's something about that which I find makes me feel at once so tiny and so enormous. Yeah, it's hard to put into words the effect of the beauty of being with the night sky. It's something that I really want to do more of, to try and get away to dark places where I can really see the sky, because I just have lived almost all of my life in really light polluted areas and have hardly been able to see and experience the night sky at all. So I think I'll be really inspired by reading about this man's journey, and I just love learning more about the stars, about the constellations in general. So I'm really looking forward to that, and this is another beautiful hardback. Lastly, this is a book which I'm currently reading but have kind of accidentally abandoned, and that is A Poem for Every Night of the Year. You can see from my bookmark I have not read A Poem Every Night of the Year. I think I'm in May, and it seems that I struggle with this concept of like reading one thing a day. So I'm also only in May because there were a couple of sessions this year where I sat down and bulk read a load of poems, which I know is not the best way to read poetry, but I actually really enjoyed reading the poems like that. And so I quite want to just invest a bit of time in getting to the end of this book. I mean, maybe I can try again next year at reading one poem every night of the year. Obviously, that's the kind of book that it is, but I just don't, in my experience. But I would like to read the poems in this, and I would like to get round to the autumnal and wintry poems in time for Christmas. So this is another book which I'm planning to focus on during December. I am unbelievably excited to bring you along with me on my day-to-day life in December and to talk about all of these gorgeous books that I've just shared with you, which I'm hoping to read, and to take some time to journal and reflect, take time for ourselves and also give time to others with gladness. So I look forward to seeing you during Vlogmas, and until then, take care. Bye bye.